Sports conversation the way it ought to be. This is Jeff Allen Sports Talk.
All right, we are back with another Media Spotlight edition. As always, it is my pleasure to bring to you, first from the Sons of UCF, Adam Eaton. Adam, hello, sir.
Jeff, Eric, always good to be on with you. Can't wait to talk some hoops, some football, some other stuff, some softball maybe. It's going to be an action-packed episode. Thanks for having me back, Jeff.
Of course, and Eric Lopez also, does around the kingdom for the Suns and also from the Black and Gold Banneret, and many, many other hats that he wears throughout the course of covering softball and whatnot. Elo, how are you?
Doing good. We're trying to survive mayhem, as they call it in softball land, with postseason regionals. You got the Florida Panthers advancing in the hockey playoffs for my team, but then, covering UCF stuff, covering softball stuff, and sports media never stops.
Yes, it never does, and always plenty to talk about, and we're going to kind of lead off things first. Yes, the NBA on NBC, they are starting to get things ramped up promotional-wise and whatnot. And, of course, the big news is they've got this little sweet theme coming back as well, Round Ball Rock, done by the great John Tesh, which was the staple of NBC's 90s coverage of the NBA. And so what do you think, guys, when you hear this music? Do you get revved up?
Wait, I thought that was the Big Ten theme music on Fox. You're telling me it had another purpose?
Yeah, this is not not the open for the Big East battle on a Tuesday night between Villanova and St. John's.
You learn something new on the show every
time. It does bring up a question, though. So does that mean now Fox cannot use it anymore? Are they going to still use it? Are we going to have way too much Round Ball Rock? What is this? What is it? Have we got an official word on this?
If I remember correctly, I think Tesh was going year to year with Fox on this. And I would think, obviously, he's going to want this to be exclusive to NBC. He'll get paid a hell of a lot more money, I'm sure, for that privilege. And Fox will have to go back to the drawing board for a new theme.
All right, that works.
Probably
another version there.
I've got an article here that NBC, that Fox is still thinking about what they're going to do. So maybe there's still some payola. Some payola involved there. Jeff. I don't know who knows. How much did you have to pay for that? Because I assume John Tesh heard that and lined his pocket somehow from that. Okay.
So are we really in a situation where a theme music, two networks are fighting for it, that we cannot come up with any other thing? We got to have to grab this thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get, Tesh is the ultimate decider on this, right? I mean, it belongs to him.
Adam, you should sell the rights to the Suns theme music to whoever does not end up with Round Ball Rock.
Okay, I will. Yes, I will give that a try. That's a great idea, Elo. You're always my agent. I love it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's there's always ways to make money in this. And of course, the other interesting piece of this stuff is that they also have a voice guy by the name of Jim Fagan, who did the voice of this is the NBA on NBC back in the 90s. And he passed away a few years ago, but they're going to use AI to recreate some of these intros that will use his voice. And, there's two schools of thought on this. The first thing is I'm a little creeped out by it. It's like also, aren't there other announcers that they could, give opportunities to for this? The other part of me, which is probably the sick part, is, well, guys, we could be doing this podcast well beyond the time we get to the pearly gates.
I'll see you there, Jeff. Yeah, I had the same thought. Like, my first thought was, I understand the nostalgia of this. It's coming back. And if you want to do this for maybe the first episode of the first game, just as kind of a callback to the times before, I'm okay with that, right? But I think we're in a spot, guys, where there's so many talented people all throughout the sports media landscape. There's got to be somebody else, an up-and-comer who could be ready to take on this assignment. So I get the nostalgia. It's probably a cool little callback on the first ever game. But I agree with you, Jeff. Like, there's somebody else out there. Give somebody else a shot. Give somebody else some reps. This is kind of like when the Yankees had John Sterling announcing games like 7 years after his death. Like, at some point, just move on to the next phase, the next evolution. Like, stop with the AI stuff. Give someone out there who deserves a shot. Again, nostalgia, fine. Do it for a game or two, fine. But there's got to be somebody else out there. Eric Lopez, I believe, is available, and you can probably get him on a cheap 3-year deal. So I don't know what NBC is thinking about, but give Eric Lopez a call.
I'm worried right now. I might get replaced now in the softball call with an AI version of me. There, it sounds like that could be the plan long term here. I didn't. Yeah, geez, that's kind of crazy. Look, it's clear NBC is going all in on nostalgia, not just with this, but other stuff as we'll get into with some of the hires, and they're going to with the theme music. They're going all in, and they're banking on nostalgia, getting people to tune into the NBA like it did in the '90s. And I actually agree with their philosophy from that standpoint because we've seen in others form of entertainment that nostalgia does work, whether it be remakes of movies, reboots, like the Top Gun movie, Maverick it was the most successful movie in Tom Cruise's career because Top Gun was a nostalgia movie from back in '86. So that's the move. NBC's going all in on it. And I totally get it. It might be a little creepy to Adam's point, but this is also the same network that used Al Michaels' voice on AI for the Olympics. So the cat's out of the bag, as they say.
Yeah, I think other things they're going to be doing, they're going to be highlighting the pregame introductions, which was kind of a staple. I mean, that's where, that's kind of where the Chicago Bulls,
I was going to say, they're going to have the
really
AI. Are they going to have an AI of the Chicago Bulls PA guy? I mean, my goodness, the Chicago Bulls guy. I mean, as a Heat fan, you know how much it ticked me off every freaking time.
I believe his name was Ray King. I only know that because of NBC. I believe his name was Ray King or something like that.
Well, he got a lot of airtime.
He was good.
Yeah, especially since the Bulls were so good back in that day. And then, of course, we have Michael Jordan, special contributor. So this is an interesting move. They're getting a legend, but here's a guy who's done zero broadcasting, to my knowledge, right? So what do we anticipate this is going to be?
I think I read that he's going to do taped segments or taped specials of some kind, right? So I don't even think he'll be live, like in studio or on remote where they throw to him. I think he'll be taped and tape something. Like this is a guy who, for all his greatness, on the court, off the court, he wasn't really a talker. He wasn't really one to ever say much. I mean, he had I'm not trying to get political. He had the famous line, Republicans buy sneakers too, right? He was always very, very aware of not offending people and saying the right thing. And so I'm curious how he takes in this role right now. If anyone has the status of being the GOAT and can take umbrage with anybody, it would be Jordan. But we just saw Tom Brady try this, and obviously in a different role. That hasn't really clicked. I'm curious what he's going to opine on. If everything's going to be in juxtaposition to his rings, like who's going to live up to his standard too, by the way, like who's the player that he's going to be like, I really like that guy. Like I'm really, really skeptical. Again, I think it's nostalgia. You think NBC, you think NBA, you think 90s, Michael Jordan's the next name out of your mouth. And so I understand the nostalgia piece, but color me skeptical on what it is that he's actually going to bring to the coverage. And my question for both of you is, how many episodes in before Ahmad Rashad makes an appearance with Michael Jordan?
The real Ahmad Rashad or an AI version of Ahmad Rashad? It could go either way.
He's still alive, right?
He's still alive, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying they could do multiple things. Look, I will say this. Everything you said is valid there. I still like the move, though. You have to make this move if you're NBC because it is going to get interest. And no matter what he does, it's going to create news because even if he says nothing, people are going to read into it, right? Like, hey, let's say he comes out and says, I'm a big fan of Jalen Brunson in this game. I think he's incredible. But then the other player on the court is like LeBron James. What about LeBron, Michael? He's, he's good, but I like that. People are going to make headlines out of it. So people are going to tune in out of curiosity. And Michael, it is interesting to see what he has to say. He has not been really a public figure. So that's the difference between him and Brady. Whereas Brady, we've kind of seen him for 20 straight years on the playing field. And then you're like, all right, that's, this is pretty much Tom Brady. Michael, I think there is this mystique of what does he think about the league? What does he think about certain players that may help NBC in the early going? Now, if he says a bunch of nothing and, then you're right, it'll kind of burn out quick. But I don't think NBC cares about that. I think NBC's looking to get off to start with a bang. And then they'll adjust as it goes. And I understand where they're coming from on it.
tape segments, I mean, is this commentary? Is this him doing Peyton Manning type stuff? It's hard to say what direction they're going to go with that.
It's interesting, right? Because is everything going to be, again, in juxtaposition to his era of basketball, what he is used to, or is he going to be evaluating the current players based on the current game? Let's also not forget, guys, for all the greatness that Jordan had, as a player evaluator, the Charlotte Hornets fans would like a word, because he didn't exactly run that franchise. He didn't exactly. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist looked pretty good out of college, but just didn't pan out in the NBA, right? So his player evaluations may be just a tad skeptical, and so I'm curious what kind of role he plays. Is he willing to say stuff? Is he willing to mix it up? Again, if it's going to be taped, probably unlikely. And it's a great question, Jeff. I don't know what to expect. I will, to Elo's point, I will tune in when it's on. I will make sure I'm watching it, and I'll probably give it a couple of weeks. But if it's like if it's watered down or if it's very vanilla, at some point in time, I probably won't waste my time on it. But I will tune in the first couple of weeks for sure.
Well, we joke, but like, who is gonna, like, is he doing it on his own, or who's gonna set him up? Is it a Mike Tirico? Is it a Bob Costas? Is it a Ahmad Rashad? Who is it that will maybe set him up? If there is a setup guy, I think will also play a factor in how good that segment is. If I were them, I would set him up with somebody like a Costas, and really. But now you're like, hey, Costas ain't just gonna just give him layups. So look, I'm intrigued by it. I think it's a good idea. It's something different. And listen, I applaud this because I don't know how much we'll get into the NBA coverage. I'm over the NBA coverage the way it is right now. I think it's bad. It needs something fresh. Like, the ESPN ABC coverage to me is right now not great. Does anybody, like, I was watching the Celtics Knicks game and Richard Jefferson was trying to make a case for people to still stay tuned to a 40-point game. Like, what? Like, no, like, stop. And while I do like Tim Legler addition there and Jay Billis doing the double dip, there's a lot of flaws in that coverage. And then, my goodness, TNT, how many more times are they just going to pat themselves on the back here and say, oh, this is the last time inside the it just has driven me nuts that Inside the NBA has done this like tour of like, hey, this has been a great ride. They're not going anywhere. They're not done. They're just leaving a channel. It's just like enough. Like the All-Star, I don't even want to get into the All-Star weekend. What a debacle they made out of that by just this whole charade about, man, Inside the NBA, we're going to, like, I get it. It was a popular show, but it's been over the top. And, it's just been all like, oh, it's the last time. And so I think I am excited for something fresh in the NBA coverage this upcoming year with NBC. That's why I am not knocking them, going nostalgic. And I'm intrigued to see what Amazon does on their package. And I hope that those networks push ESPN to do something fresh themselves. Speaking of theme music, please change your theme music, ESPN. Feel free to tap in some money for John Tesh if you want, or whoever. But change your theme music, because that's terrible too.
Yeah, you bring an interesting point about how bland ESPN's coverage got. I mean, doesn't that tell you something when they know they have a problem if they're bringing Jay Billis in to try to help rescue this, right?
Agreed, 100%. I mean, and I've liked them, and I like and again, him and Mark Jones have been interesting. I have liked Legler and Dave Pasch. I thought they did a good job.
That's good.
I like the package they did with OKC and Denver. I think it was Game 6. They did a really good job of there. Personally, I would have liked to have Legler or Billis on the main finals team. I understand why they put Jefferson there, because Jefferson, I think, used that for leverage because Amazon was interested. I don't know, Adam. Maybe you tell me. I'm just not impressed with the main team at all. I feel like Mike Breen, and maybe this is the play-by-play side of me, I feel like Mike Breen has had to do more the last 2 years than he had to do with Van Gundy and Jackson, because there was a chemistry there with the three of them. So Breen kind of knew he can just lay out and he's fine. Whereas with these new tandems, he's had to do more work. And look, he's still great, but he's had to carry more of the weight, in my opinion, from what I've heard. Maybe you tell me I'm wrong.
No, that trio doesn't work well together. I think Richard Jefferson, different than JJ Redick. He wants to make the joke. He's more of a jokester. And where JJ was at least trying to be analytical and bring, some knowledge to the game. Not that Jefferson can't, but he seems to go for the easy joke, seems to go for some of those things. I think Doris Burke doesn't know what to do with that stuff sometimes. It's like he throws a dead fish in her lap of like, look at that guy. I remember seeing that once. And she's like, yeah. And so there's not a ton of continuity between them. And Breen's trying to get in his usual stuff. But it's just a weird crew. The studio crew is bad. Kendrick Perkins, like make up your mind what you. Stephen A. Smith is insufferable. I don't mind Bob Myers, but
I like Bob Myers.
Yeah.
I think in a proper setting,
it's awkward with the setting that he's in. Like, I just don't know how he fits in that group.
He's in the cage of fools, right?
Yeah, and Malika's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, nothing against Malika Andrews, but that whole studio crew just doesn't work. The game doesn't work. It's just it's a weird dynamic there right now on ESPN. And if I'm Jimmy Pitaro and I'm seeing what NBC's doing, which we're going to talk about, what Amazon's doing, which we're going to talk about, I got to be going back to my office going, guys, what are we doing? Because we are now going to be the third chair by far in terms of talent from a network perspective. What are we going to do? Who are we going to grab? And I'm sorry, it's not Kendrick Perkins. It's probably not Richard Jefferson. I don't think that's the route you want to go. I think Elo said it best. When ESPN has to go buy another show, that tells you how bad their shows are, right? When ESPN had to go buy Pat McAfee at noon, that tells you how bad reruns of First Take and Get Up we're going to do, right? So I think that tells you ESPN's admission there without them actually having to admit it.
Yeah. And of course, Adam, to kind of get back to an earlier point of yours about Michael Jordan as a talent evaluator, his philosophy was the ceiling is the roof. So
I've heard I've heard the ceiling is the floor, the roof, the sides of the wall. Yeah, look, I'm not saying the guy, he obviously knows more basketball than the three of us combined in our lifetimes, right? But one could argue, does he really have? But I guess, Elo, you tell me, like, is anybody tuning? What are you tuning in to hear Michael Jordan say? If Michael Jackson comes back, that's a whole nother thing.
AI, baby, AI.
What do you? That's a great point. What are you tuning in to hear? Do you want to hear analysis? Do you want to hear how the shooter got open? Do you want to hear about the ins and outs of the game? Do you want to hear about his heyday? Do you want to hear who he compares? Like, what do you want to hear from Jordan? Because I just don't think he's going to be that guy who's going to break down the elevator screen pick and roll. I just don't think that's what he's going to do.
No, but which audience are you talking about? Are you talking about the diehard NBA fan? Or are you talking about a casual fan? Because I think there's two different answers there. And that's why I've always made the argument of Tony Romo. Like, while the diehards may not be the biggest fan of Tony Romo or Tom Brady, the casuals don't care. They just say, hey, that's Tom Brady. That's Michael Jordan. That's what's going to connect them. So I think the casuals just want to see Michael Jordan's like, hey, that's Michael Jordan. Like my family does not give a bleep about sports, right? But if Michael Jordan is on, when they pop up, they're going to call me, hey, Michael Jordan's on TV. What do you know? Like, when
if you're producing him, Elo, what do you tell? If you're producing him, if you're in his ear, what are you telling him? Executive producer Eric Lopez is on site with Michael Jordan. What do you want him to provide? What do you think he should?
Well, I think that's up. I think the question is to Michael. Michael, what do you want to talk about? Michael, what do you want to talk about specific players? Do you want to talk strategic stuff? Do you want to talk about the state of the game? I think you have to have that conversation with Michael. And I like to think that conversation has taken place or will take place. You can't force him to be somebody he's not. So what does he want to do? One of the great success about Peyton Manning is he's been himself. He loves dissecting plays and breaking them down in his way. Does he want to be, I don't sense that Michael wants to be necessarily a PR guy for the league. Whereas a guy like Magic Johnson, for example, you always got a sense, he's just being a PR, guy. So I think I want to hear what Michael thinks of, certain situations. Like, for example, can he be something similar to Barkley in that? Is he going to be willing to criticize the style of, hey, there's too many 3-point shots, right? It's when could he be a mini, without being like sarcastic, funny Barkley? If he says, hey, I don't like the 3-point shooting, I think there's too many of them. I think there should be more of them. This now people will take notice. Okay, Michael thinks that way. What do that? I think that's what I think people would want to hear is, what does Michael think of today's game? What does he think of these guys? Does he I'll use a wrestling term, does he put over an Anthony Edwards as, hey, this guy's awesome?
Well, I was going to ask that. Would you be in for? And I don't think Michael will do this, but imagine the pregame segment is, the NBC has, Timberwolves Nuggets on, on a good time spot. You send Jordan out and he tapes a segment with Anthony Edwards, right? They're shooting the gym. They're doing a one-on-one. He's breaking down his game. Would you want to see him? I don't think he's going to do this, so don't get me wrong, but traveling, hey, spending time with Anthony Edwards, spending time with Devin Booker, spending time, with Giannis, going around the country, spending time with some of these big stars, doing a quote unquote interview, but also being on the court, talking about some of the moves and the jab step and do you think that would be interesting to people if he was kind of breaking down and sort of almost mentoring some of the younger players in the league?
I do, to a degree, because that's almost like he's endorsing that player, which I think helps the league. The comparison I would make is when Tom Brady, I think early in the year in the NFL, interviewed Patrick Mahomes. I think people were intrigued by that, even if the interview is fluff, right? Like people are just interested to see greatness around other greatness players, right?
Yeah.
So I actually think that would be good. I agree with you. I don't think he'll do that. I don't get the sense he would do that. But I think that is something that would intrigue people. Yes. Like imagine this. Okay. What if a year from now, one of the pregame coming up, the NBC and the AI voice, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, sit down interview.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? Or wouldn't that be that people, because people have wondered about that relationship, right? We make a big fuss about it.
Yeah. I'd want to see Anthony Edwards, who now is trying to anoint himself as the next Gibby Jordan and Steph Curry. What's that conversation like? Two guys who completely change the game in different ways. That'd be interesting.
And there's even one storyline, and I wonder if the networks would allow it to do it.
Barkley?
But you know where Barkley. Yeah. With all the stuff that's gone on there, you don't think that would be must-see TV? Like these two guys that apparently don't talk anymore and all that stuff. If the networks put it together where they're in the same room, that's television viewership there, Adam.
Yeah,
I'd watch.
There's potential. I'm just saying, there's a lot of potential here. Now, I may end up being disappointed. I could see us doing a podcast on this like 6 weeks into that. And we're like, man, Michael's so boring. He doesn't say anything. And then we're like, but I'm not going to criticize NBC for doing it because they're taking a swing and it's something different and I'm all for it.
Yeah. So let's segue into, the fact that NBC and Amazon are filling out their rosters for the upcoming season. And since we've been on NBC because of Jordan, let's stay with the network. What are the moves you like or dislike that NBC has done so far?
Well, I think their play-by-play is strong. Tirico and Noah Eagle, I think they're both strong. I think Noah did a great job in the Olympics. Obviously, we know Tirico is. Now, he's going to be a bit rusty, but he's the quintessential gamer, right? Like, I think he'll be able to figure it out. I do like Jamal Crawford in an analyst role. I think Jamal Crawford is a good up-and-comer. I think he's got a good perspective on the game. I'm not sure about Carmelo. Carmelo does a great job on his podcast, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. Sometimes you see the clips on social media, and they're interesting, but that's a more free-flowing conversation. He can let the F-bombs fly, right? He can have a little bit more fun on that. I'm curious what he'll do in that setting. So he's a question mark for me. I do not like the Reggie Miller hire. Reggie Miller, get out of my life. Like, we've had enough of Reggie Miller at this point in time. Put him and Jordan together. That might actually be interesting as well, right? And I've just never been impressed. Like, I wanted to like him. I thought maybe I would like him. Never been impressed with Vince Carter. I just don't think he's really smooth on the microphone. I don't think he's comfortable. He doesn't look comfortable in those settings, and so I just don't know if he's gonna work out. So I like the play-by-play guys. I like Jamal Crawford. I'm up in the air on Carmelo. Not a fan of Reggie and Vince Carter.
Elo?
Well, first of all, I think we've learned Adam's got a side gig here as a podcast critic. Review the Siskel and Ebert of podcasts. I didn't even know Carmelo Anthony had a podcast. So
you should hear what he says about Around the Kingdom.
Very true. I see his reviews. I see his comments. I will defend him on the Reggie hire in that I think that's a hire of this is somebody that has experience, has been there. People know him. Like, you didn't want to. I think NBC wanted a conservative move. Hey, this guy's got experience. We don't have to worry. You know what you're getting. And while we figure out what we have in other people type of thing. I'm surprised, unless I missed something. Are you guys not surprised that Dwayne Wade's not a part of this, considering he did the Olympics with no? I was surprised he ended up going to Amazon instead. Did I miss something here? That part surprised me.
Yeah, if I had to stack up, here's how I'd phrase this. I was trying to think of this earlier. NBC is producing their NBA for my 60-year-old uncle. Amazon's producing their NBA for, the 25-year-old, just fresh out of college kid. Like the way their lineups are stacked up, the way the talent is, kind of the youth versus, you mentioned Reggie Miller. He's a commodity. He's a name. Everyone knows what you're going to get with him, right? But they also didn't take a lot of chances. I guess maybe you say Jamal Crawford's a chance, but I think he's done a nice job in the assignments he's had. But the Wade thing is interesting. The way you have to assume at this point, they basically chose Jamal Crawford over Dwayne Wade, right? Like that has to be how that worked out because Reggie was going to be first, right? Like you get the Reggie because he's the name, but you got to think when they said, who's that second chair? Like I assume that the number one pairing is going to be Tirico and Reggie, right?
Yeah,
so you had Noah and you had Jamal Crawford. Either Wade picked Amazon over NBC or NBC picked Crawford over Wade. I don't know which one came first.
Well, and maybe Amazon gives Wade more flexibility that maybe he doesn't have to do just game analyst as many games as he would have at NBC.
Well, I think,
or not.
And keep me honest on this. I guess we don't know this for a fact. I assume NBC will produce out of New York. Just an assumption on my part.
Yes, the caucus, yeah.
Where Amazon may have more of a foothold on the West Coast. Wade lives in California. Perhaps he wants to be more West and doesn't want to fly across the country again. I don't know where Amazon's going to set up camp, but I think we all know New York is going to be where NBC's at. So perhaps Wade just didn't want to make a cross country flight every 5 days and want to be closer to home or close to his family.
I like your theory about the NBC going more the older audience. That makes sense because if you think about it, linear television, the demographics are older, right?
Yep.
Versus Amazon, which is a younger, hip audience. So that I think that really fits. And I do think that's not a coincidence that the NBA picked those products to be representing there. I think that's what they're shooting for. The Amazon thing, it feels like they're just going to do what they did with the NFL, where they're going to have like 1,000 people in their coverage. Am I wrong on that? And then, I feel like every day they're hiring people, like it's like left and right. Like, what is it? Blake Griffin, Dirk Nowitzki, like they just have 1 million people there on set. And then obviously the Iron Eagle and Kevin Harlan, I don't think that's a surprise, especially Harlan, I think kind of got the worst case deal out of all this because I never thought he would go to an NBC because it conflicts with his CBS stuff, I think. I mean, he kind of stopped short of saying that. But it feels like Amazon's picking Iron Eagle over Kevin Harlan to be the voice of the NBA for Amazon, which is interesting considering Kevin Harlan, I think, is been regarded as more of the voice of the NBA, at least with Turner, than Iron Eagle is. So I'm a little surprised, but I don't know if that's a big deal. I think they'll probably split it in half if I had to bet on that standpoint. But I think those two are fantastic. And actually, I would give them the edge over NBC on play-by-play from that standpoint, depth-wise.
For sure.
Who is going to be the number one analyst, though, on Amazon? Do we know that? Yeah,
I was going to ask that question, right? So here's what I know we're jumping ahead, Jeff. So I know you haven't introduced the Amazon component. So don't mind Eric and I just producing the show for here.
Less work for me. I'm all good.
The Amazon analysts, as I have them here, are and I don't know what order this is in. So this is what I see: Dirk Nowitzki, Blake Griffin, Dwayne Wade, Steve Nash, Candace Parker, Udonis Haslem, right? There's only 2 play-by-play folks, Iron Eagle and Kevin Harlan, right? Unless you're doing 3-person booths, you're probably only got. So who's in the studio and who is an actual analyst? Like, is Dwayne Wade going to be the number one? If so, maybe that's why he's at Amazon, because he will be number one with Iron Eagle, right? Or does Nowitzki get a run? Blake Griffin's been pretty savvy in the media. Is he any good at this, right? So I don't think we know that yet, but you have too many analysts, air quotes. So who's studio and who's going to be on game?
It feels like a 3-man booth, though, doesn't it? It feels like we're headed there.
I think my guess would be Iron Eagle is this is just a complete guess on my part. I'm going to say Iron Eagle solo with Dwayne Wade, and I think Kevin Harlan gets some package of Nash and maybe Candace Parker.
Well, Parker he's worked with before at Turner, so keep that in mind. I agree with that. I think that's a very safe bet there.
So I think you get Parker and you throw either Nash or Nowitzki with them, and see how that rocks. I think you've got. I like Udonis Haslem. Maybe it's because I'm a Heat homer. I think he does a nice job on ESPN and Get Up. I think he's a good studio analyst too. I think Blake is funny. He does a lot of media stuff, right? I think he's in the studio cutting it up. You can do the fun Barkley-esque type stuff with him. And then I think you decide between Nowitzki and Nash, whoever you don't put out on the game broadcast stays in studio with Taylor Rooks.
So according to AI Overview on Google, Nash is definitely going to do both studio analyst and color. Nowitzki studio, Griffin is studio. Dwayne Wade will be both. Candace Parker will be both. Haslam will be a studio analyst. And then, of course, the host is Taylor Rooks. So this is kind of her big break.
Yeah, look, I like this. I honestly do like this mix. Now we'll see how it shakes out. Again, admitted Heat Homer, another podcast you guys might enjoy. It's called The OGs with Udonis Haslam and Mike Miller. They do a good job. Thank you. They do a good job on that show. Udonis has been on Get Up lately. He's been on ESPN. I think he's getting some chops. Steve Nash now has a podcast with LeBron. I haven't listened to that one yet, but he's obviously now getting into the media space. So I don't know what he's like. I think Dirk's a wild card. I mean, we hear from him every now and again, but what do you get a Dirk? He's a good name, right? And maybe he'll be entertaining, but I like the fact they're taking some chances on some maybe unproven people in this space. And to Elo's point, we were all a tad skeptical of the Amazon NFL package. And I think you got to say, I mean, they do a decent job. Tony Gonzalez is boring as always, right? But I think Whitworth and Fitzmagic, Patrick, I think they're a good mix. I think Richard Sherman is just enough of an idiot to make it interesting. And Carissa Thompson is fine, right? So I think they found a nice little mix there on the Amazon pregame stuff. Maybe they can do the same. I assume that's their thinking with the NBA. Find some names who don't have maybe as much of a pedigree and throw them together and do it a little bit more reverently. Maybe I should say that. Have some fun and try not to be as serious as NBC is trying to be.
Don't you? I mean, and I don't know if this has come out yet or not, but I wonder too, is Amazon going to air NBA games on Thursday nights, kind of to follow suit with the football package, and then NBC Sunday nights to follow after the football package? That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
NBC for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is doing that.
Yeah. I got to say, I mean, so the Turner real estate is now available, right? Turner, what was Tuesdays and Thursdays? I think ESPN was always Wednesdays and Fridays. So you got to imagine there's, then we're trying that ABC game of the week on ESPN on Saturday night. Like, does that now become an Amazon property on a Saturday night? I think the Sunday slot probably sticks to NBC. So I will be curious to see how they break apart that real estate.
I know the ABC is going to keep the Saturday night package for the most part, from what I understand. And I think this is why the NBA did this. They want to be on linear television more. I think they're going away from cable and going more into linear television or streaming, which I think is the smart play. I think the NBA has been hurt by being buried on cable. I was just in Oklahoma City, for example, covering softball, and I'm having a hard. Adam, I know you travel a lot. I have a harder time finding Turner as far as finding the NBA playoffs than I do hockey playoffs, because it's easier. Usually, at least in the hotels I'm in at, ESPN pops up right away, and it turns out they have hockey that night, etc. Versus the NBA Turner. I think it'll be a lot easier to follow the NBA playoffs if you're somebody that's traveling a lot. And I think being on NBC and ABC a lot, like they are intending to be, I think it's a big plus. And then you have the streaming audience with Amazon, which I think everybody has Amazon at this point. I don't think Amazon's complicated. It's not like the Apple deal with baseball. No disrespect, Jeff. But, I mean, who the heck wants to have Apple baseball package? I mean, give me a break.
I don't.
Oh, there you go. I think Amazon, everybody has Amazon for obviously a variety of reasons. So I'm excited about this new package. I think it was time. They needed a fresh start for the league. I keep saying that. And I hope it pushes ESPN to be better in their product. Whether it does or doesn't, I don't know. But and I think the other factor is you have two pros in Harlan and Eagle that will make whoever the analyst is better. Ask JJ Watt.
And Stan Van Gundy's going to be in the mix there too. So
Stan's a vet, right? Great call.
Yeah. So interesting aspect, because you brought up like the pregame show for the NFL. Of course, they always do that on site. So is Amazon going to do theirs from a big warehouse somewhere?
It's a good question, right? I guess it depends on the package they get. I mean, do they bring people on site for some of these games if it's a big enough game? Like, it's a good question. My assumption was some sort of nondescript studio somewhere, in Hollywood they can rent out for a cheap rate. And that would be my assumption, but it's good. It's a fair point, Jeff. I could see them going on the road if they get a couple of nice games.
I think they might do some road shows depending on the marquee games. I think from what I understand, I think they're going to get the NBA Cup or whatever it's called. That tournament in the fall.
It is the NBA Cup. Very good. Very good.
All right. I was lucky guess. They might get a package of that. I wonder if they would get the playing games or not. That could be also part of the package. I think that will dictate itself. But I could see them doing some road shows. I mean, TNT the NBA started to do that occasionally. And ESPN has been doing that a lot of times from the West Coast, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did more road shows just to get the word out there and make it feel bigger.
It would be something to watch for sure. So I just kind of look forward to just seeing new players in the mix, or the return of
especially in this particular landscape, yes. Right? I don't think anybody's like, man, I get it. Like, I've had this argument with friends of mine. It's like, oh, we're going to miss Inside the NBA and the Turner coverage. And I'm like, well, they're not going away. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. They're not going away. Yes, maybe the presentation will be a little different, but like Kevin Harlan's still going to be calling NBA. Ian Eagle's still calling NBA. And those Inside the NBA guys are still going to be around. And I know people think it's going to be drastically different because they're going to be on the ABC ESPN channel. I personally think they're going to treat Inside the NBA like they treat Pat McAfee, which means they're going to just let him do whatever they want.
Yeah. As long as the check's clear, that's all that matters. So, and that's what Barkley's always worried about too. So it'll be interesting to see, I kind of like the freshness. You remember when CBS and Turner merged together for March Madness? I kind of felt that was a fresh, thing, another step forward in how the product was covered. I kind of see this being the same thing. Well, one last NBA related deal. So over the weekend, ESPN booted a UFL game on ABC, which was actually an exciting game. And of course, now I'm not going to go crazy here because this is the UFL, so it's not like they probably had a huge audience. But they booted it over to ESPN2 in order for ABC's pregame to start. So, this is a case of Stephen A. pointing at his watch to everybody. Hey, come on! I got some ridiculous stuff to say. But I find that to be a very intriguing move for the pregame show. Now, if you're infringing on the start of the game, I don't know.
I think the answer lies in, Jeff, according to the research I did before the show, UFL ratings down 25% on ESPN, right? So I think it's probably a numbers play. Like I'm willing to bet, and I have no inside knowledge, of course, why would I, that it probably wasn't that hard of a decision. Like, I don't think they sat there and fretted over like, oh, do we really do that? I think it was like, yeah, you know what, fine, let's make the switch. And I hope I didn't think at that point, Jeff, you bring this up, and gosh, I hope it's not true, but I hope the Stephen A. factor doesn't come into this. Like, we're paying this guy all this money, we got to get him on. Like, I hope that wasn't the factor, but I'm also not naive enough to think that probably wasn't a factor. But 25% down on viewership, I don't even think it was that hard a choice. I think someone's like, hey, did we just switch it? Okay, let's switch it. Yeah, Jimmy hit the button, and all of a sudden it was on another channel. Like, I'm not surprised when you look at it. And I don't think ESPN or ABC, whoever, had that hard decision to make.
I think the UFL should be grateful it's even on ABC for a minute. If it was up to me, it'd be on ESPN Plus, basically. That's it. Like, does anybody ever bring up UFL other than Trace Trocco? He's the only one that cares. And I don't know anybody else that watches UFL football. Like, seriously, I don't watch a second of it. I do think the NBA pregame show draws a bigger number. I'll phrase it this way. What if this was a year from now and the choice is, hey, do we stay with the UFL game or do you go with Inside the NBA? What do you think the decision is going to be? Inside the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. So, I don't have a problem with it. I think I would, and I understand what you're saying, Jeff. Normally, you prefer live sporting events over a pregame show, right? But this is a Game 7 of the NBA pregame show, and I think they also want to send a message that they do care about their pregame show, even though they're buying another pregame show. This pregame show still matters to them because they're still going to use this pregame show next year when Inside the NBA is not on the air. So I think there's a multiple of factors there, but I have no problem with it. I didn't even know UFL was on. Listen, and I don't know how much longer the UFL is going to exist. Like the guy, The Rock, who kind of helped make all this, he doesn't even promote it anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't.
This is their last year. Yeah.
It feels like this is their last year. There's just no buzz for it. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, they also, I mean, they were famously in some sort of a players union strike. I think that the guys are going to go on strike for a period of time, right? I think this is the point in time to well, not that they should, by the way, but this is to your point, Jeff. Either you're a business or you're not. Right. And at this point, if you got to start doing deals and contracts and like either you're a business or you're not. And if you can't continue to, maintain your level of viewership, you're probably not going to be a business. Right. So this probably is long. And that's unfortunate. Like, I don't watch it. I'm aware that it's on because on YouTube TV, it tells you the sports that are on. So I always see, I think the Michigan Panthers play like every day for all I know. Every time I'm like, Michigan Panthers again, how many games these guys play? But it sucks for guys like that we cover at UCF who get a chance to go to the UFL and play for a little bit. Marlon Williams and, Cole Schneider. It sucks for guys like that who want the opportunity, but it's not drawing numbers. It's not doing something. And I think, ESPN's basically taking it off the air, moving it someplace else, probably tells you what. Did they get any negative letters? I know that
nobody complained.
Right,
Nobody.
The day and the age of like, why don't you move my like? I'd love to see the complaint box on the Michigan Panthers versus whoever the hell they were playing get moved off ESPN for the pregame.
Yeah, I will tell you. So I will throw the UFL on one of my TVs, but it's more as a time filler till the next thing comes on.
But you
should invite Trace. You should invite Trace to your house and watch.
You said the key phrase, Jeff. One of my TVs. You
Yes.
have multiple to view. If you only had one, I don't know if that's getting on your TV. But because you've got multiple, you've got real estate to play with, and you're like, geez, fine. Well, you guess UFL, right? Yeah. Like I think that's how the list goes for you. Like it's on the third TV, right? It's on the smallest TV you have.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, we're good.
Yeah. So there's that factor, but they also kind of leads me to a different. Kind of off topic, but and we can also kind of talk about this when we get to the softball segment. It feels like to me that they really need to reevaluate their time windows on sporting events because I think they're trying to do 3 hours for the UFL, right? 2 hours for softball, 2 hours for basketball just doesn't work anymore because it goes to ESPN News. They should just rebrand that as ESPN Overflow. Because that's all.
ESPN Oops is what they should probably call it. And it's even worse, Jeff, to your point. You guys both know this. It's even worse during college football season where no game is over in 3.5 hours.
Yes.
Right. It's even worse because now I'm hunting. It's on the app. Is it on you? Is it on Plus? Is it on 2? Is it on SEC Network? Like that's even worse for college football season.
Yeah, although I think Fox has done a little bit of that experimenting with.
Fox has done the best job of. Fox has done the best job because normally they have the big noon game, and then the second game is not normally until 3:45 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. And I've heard theories that ABC doesn't do that because they want to keep the news in a certain schedule and all that stuff. Listen, the softball thing. Don't get me started on that. That's been an ongoing thing. My favorite part about this was 2 years ago. No, excuse me, last year. There was this big mandate around the sport to add the 20-second pitch clock because, hey, we got to speed up the game because we got to keep this ESPN windows and everything. What people don't realize, the reason the games go on now for 2 hours or more is not because pitchers are taking forever. It's because there's more commercial breaks. That's why. It's us. We're the problem. But yet we're telling the sport, speed it up. So we can air more commercials. It's a hypocritical thing, and it drives me nuts. And you're right, it's annoying because from a DVR standpoint, it's a nightmare because I have to constantly go an extra hour because I know my UCF team, they ain't playing a less than 2 hour game. It's gonna be 2.5 tops, so at a minimum. So you're right about that. It's an annoying problem, but they don't want to change it because they don't want to. Because the problem is what they will tell you is if they start opening up a window for 2.5 or 3 hours, then what they'll tell you is, then all of a sudden, what if you get a run rule game? And now the game's over in an hour and a half, and now you got an hour to fill. They would rather go over and start the game elsewhere than try to figure out what do we do with an hour because this game ended early.
Mm. Well, good inside baseball stuff there, I should say. But yeah, it is a tough thing because it always kills me, and I had a lot of softball in this weekend, and in the little corner box in yellow, such and such game is now starting on ESPN News and the ESPN app, and it's like it's almost every game that happens with. So, all right, let's move forward here, and interesting aspect here. So the Rich Eisen show, I guess you can go home again. Rich Eisen is his TV show, which is also a radio show, is going to be licensed to ESPN. So it's kind of like a Pat McAfee deal. So he's basically the rights owner of that. But very interesting aspect as Rich goes back to where it started, and I believe primarily it's ESPN Plus that you'll be accessing that on.
Well, it's the new ESPN standalone variety, which check notes here. They call it ESPN, by the way. So it's the new direct to consumer entity they have out there that they had multiple focus groups tell them you should just call ESPN, by the way. And so Rich Eisen taking a show, I think, from Roku, bringing it over to the ESPN Plus / direct to consumer platform. 12 to 3 Eastern every day, which, gentlemen, brings me to why this is happening, in my opinion. Rich Eisen, a.k.a. Pat McAfee Insurance, has the exact same time slot as Pat McAfee. If something goes haywire with McAfee, you move Rich Eisen right into McAfee slots, and you're good to go, right? Even I think McAfee acknowledged on his show when he realized that Rich would have the same time slot as him, but on the again, the internet version of ESPN, not the linear version. I think even he was like, wait a minute, that's our time slot, right? So I think, to me, it's a good move. Rich is a good broadcaster, has some good guests on his show. But to me, this is Pat McAfee Insurance. In case the day McAfee crosses that line, Elo earlier said that ESPN lets him skirt all the time. When he makes that one line cross, you have a tried and true professional in Rich Eisen, who is not going to be a line crosser. While he'll do his own show his own way, he's not going to go anywhere near the thermometer that is Pat McAfee. You've got a safe, nice 12 to 3, and you're cooking with gas. So Rich Eisen, good show, good move. Pat McAfee Insurance.
A lot of thoughts here. I agree. I love that conspiracy theory. I don't even know if it's a conspiracy theory. I think it just makes a ton of sense. Number one, I'm a fan of his show. I hope this brings some stability to it. I feel like it's been volatile. I feel like every other week it keeps moving. Like
he's been on Peacock. He's been on, who the hell watches him on Roku? I mean, come on.
Same people that watch baseball on Roku, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's been weird because it's been like volatile. Like it keeps moving around. So I like this fit for everybody. Here's but now I'm going to throw another conspiracy on you.
Ooh.
It's interesting that he's making this deal with ESPN. They claim right now, hey, it's just for the radio show, not for on air. Yet there's been reports that ESPN has been negotiating to purchase the NFL Network.
Yes.
Right?
That's going to happen.
Okay.
I think that's going to happen.
You said it, Jeff. Okay. So who's going to host the NFL pregame show? I think Mike Greenberg may watch his back here a little bit. I think Rich.
Don't you dare!
I know, Adam, I know you're going to be devastated. You're a big Mike Greenberg.
Wow. Let me hold on. I need time to breathe.
I think Rich Eisen will get a pregame show, NFL pregame show on ESPN Linear at some point. Whether it's the Sunday countdown one makes the most sense. I could see Mike Greenberg coming out. I got too much going on. It's okay. I'm wording my jets and all that. Whatever. I don't think it would be the Monday night countdown because I think people like what Van Pelt's been doing with that show. But it wouldn't shock me if Van Pelt says, hey, this is too much. I'm telling you, Rich Eisen will pop up on television on those NFL shows because it's a good cross promotion. If nothing else, got to cross promote. Hopefully they don't let him do play-by-play. That would be
that would be.
But and this might also lead, and maybe how about this? We know this. I mean, Around the Horn, it's ending at the end of this week. What if Rich Eisen's show pops up in that slot? It's also to cross promote. There's a lot of conspiracy there for you.
Well, this brings up another fun fact, by the way. I just want to make sure. Let me get the answer so I can ask appropriately. There's also in the press release or the stories that are out there that Eisen may contribute to ESPN Radio. So I don't know if his show will be simulcast on ESPN
that still
Radio.
exists.
Apparently, and this is what I want to ask you. Let me say if I could give you to 1 million guesses to tell me what's currently on ESPN Radio between noon and 3, you would never ever guess this. Just throw out your wildest guess.
Doesn't Chris Canty have a show there? Canty?
I have no idea. The correct answer is the noon to 3 offering on ESPN Radio is Joe and Q, featuring Joe Fortenbaugh and Quiet Q Myers.
Oh, that's the gambling guy. The gambling guy.
Joe Fortenbaugh is, yeah.
Well,
fun fact.
Sure, that's riveting.
Well, let me ask you this too, because there was reports that they were going after Cowherd.
Yes.
But Cowherd stayed at Fox. Could Eisen have been plan B as well? If since they couldn't get Cowherd, you get Eisen to fill that slot as well.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Although,
I think you're on this. Like, I gotta think, and I thought I read this someplace. I was trying to look while we were talking, but I can't find it. I thought I read somewhere where Jimmy Pitaro commented around having somebody with NFL knowledge like Rich Eisen in our fold is helpful. You never know what that can mean, dot, right? Which I think you may be on something. You can't tell me come August when NFL talk starts heating up that, ESPN won't have a need to throw him on NFL Live to host, right? Or something on those lines on kind of the weekday.
And the NFL likes him, obviously. They've worked with, like they like him, and he's good, by the way. I think he's really, like, if you ask me who's the best NFL pregame host, I think it's him and Van Pelt that I like. I just find it hard, and he's got the look. And what's the over under on the guest cameo Sports Center he does? It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. So I love the move, though. I think it's a good move for everybody. Because I like the Eisen show, so I just hope it gives it stability, and I think it will. And I think it's a smart move for all parties.
Well, I wonder what will happen on the radio side of his show, because I believe he is distributed by Westwood One now, as is Jim Rome. And, Jim Rome moved to Afternoon Drive for his show to be carried.
That was weird. That was weird. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, he had to lose a ton of affiliates make it.
I wonder if they move him back to noon now with Eisen on the move.
Yeah, it could be possibility. So very there's a lot of possibilities there. Now,
Jeff, you should throw your hat in there.
I'm in. So you brought up the pregame show Sunday morning, right? If ESPN does indeed buy the NFL Network, do you produce 2 pregame shows on Sunday morning, or do you simulcast one?
Maybe you produce 2 shows and back to back like Fox does. You could do one where one is on the linear side. You could do one where the other one is on the streaming side. Either way, I think there's options here that they're thinking. I think what we're going to know, here's what we do know. We're going to see a ton of NFL content from ESPN.
Yeah,
a ton. Sure. And I still believe one of the reasons Around the Horn is getting kicked to the curb, I have a feeling in the fall there's going to be an NFL show in that slot. That's kind of my lean on that. Like, I know some people think they may just go 1 hour PTI.
I don't see
Tony.
Tony's not going to do an hour.
I don't see Tony signing up for that. Yeah, and Wilbon's too hit or miss with his attendance on the show. I can't see them signing up for an hour.
I agree. And I think half hour is perfect. That's the whole point of the show. That's how Around the Kingdom was created, by the way. Was the whole point.
Don't tell anybody that he low. Trade secrets around here, James.
Fastest UCF show around. And Trace is the Tony Kornheiser of the show because he takes time off as well.
No, you've nailed it. He is the curmudgeon. He's the bigger curmudgeon of the two of you. That's for sure.
I know. I don't know who our Pablo Torre is though, or Frank Isola, Frillin Frank of the show. We haven't.
That's a good question.
We still haven't
figured
out. Jeff is in the mix on that, but look, they're going to use a lot of NFL content. It's set up that way. I think that's what the NFL wants. So if that deal happens with ESPN and NFL, I expect a lot of NFL content over the schedules. And Rich Eisen is going to be in the middle of that. I don't care what they say. He's going to be involved. He's too good not to. He's too valuable not to.
All right. And speaking of NFL coverage, there was a little thing called the NFL Draft recently, which stirred a lot of interesting folks, including one Mel Kiper Jr., who had the epic meltdown for 2 days. Maybe all 3 days of the draft because the Shedeur Sanders slide to the 5th round. And I think I commented at the time, if he hadn't become the cartoon version of himself before then, he definitely crossed into that stratosphere during the NFL draft. So guys, what did you make of all the Kiper shenanigans that went on during the NFL draft? And one thing for sure is he generated a hell of a lot of publicity for himself.
It was really weird. It was really like after a while, it was like, this is very performative now. This is going from, I have an analyst, I have an opinion, I did some research, this is what I think. And it became performative. It almost became like he had to continue to play a character or a role on the show. But you could tell the guys on set, Reese Davis namely, were uncomfortable with like what continued to happen in the way that he was continuing to pontificate about this stuff. So it's a great question, Jeff. I don't know if he's just looking for relevancy. I don't know if he just needs to, want to be, I don't know if he was just trying to get in good favor with Dion and wanted to zig where everybody else was zagging. I don't know what the strategy was, but it was really weird and off-putting. And I typically don't care about my draft coverage. Like half the time the sound's not even on for me, or I'm just trying to see the names on the board, right? But that was the first time in a long time where I had it on TV. And again, by the time this was happening, I'm doing 9 other things. I'm not even really listening, right? But it got to the point where I had to turn ESPN off because I was just sick of hearing from Mel Kiper. I just had to go to another channel.
Well, like how many people did they drive to ABC and NFL Network?
Yeah, I won at least over here, hand raised, because I was like, what is this? What is this problem? And it finally just changed the channel. It was really weird. I don't know if he was just trying to be performative, if he just wanted to maybe to make a splash or do something unique out there, but it got uncomfortable at times. And listen, we talk on the show a lot. Reese Davis appears to be the nicest human being that's ever been invented on this earth, right? And when you get Reese Davis riled up, you've done something, right? And so for Reese Davis to get riled up, where he seems to be the nicest man, most even-keeled, he deals with McAfee, Pollock, everybody, and he figures it out. Yet Mel Kiper finally broke him. That should tell you how crazy this whole situation was.
Well, yeah, Mel Kiper and Reese Davis was a bad fit. Let's just get that out of the way.
It did not work.
That's
that one. Rich Eisen, come on down.
And how do we not bring that up? He could host the NFL draft. That's a great call.
That's going to be a simulcast. I bet you $1 billion.
Easily, absolutely. And then they might pair up Daniel Jeremiah and Mel Kiper. That could be interesting. So I think first of all, that was a bad fit. Like Kiper in that setting with those guys are a bad fit. The problem is Kiper comes from the old school days where you criticize picks and guys and stuff like that. Whereas it's gone the direction of hey, this is a nice pick. It could work out. It's blah, blah, blah.
A value pick.
Value pick. I think Mel, I could sympathize with Mel to a degree in this regard. I do bracketology for softball. If I don't get, I didn't get Oregon hosting right, correct. Well, I was very upset about it because it went against everything the committee members have told me they like to do, like, non-conference schedule and stuff like that. So I think there's a part of him that is thinking, wait a minute, I valued this guy as, I think he had him as the best quarterback or whatever, and you're dropping him to the 5th round? Like, what the heck? Like, you know what I mean? I think he got defiant, and the problem is, I think, here's my other conspiracy hat on. I think ESPN liked it. I think they encouraged them to do that because that became the story. That was all anybody cared about. Why is he dropping? Why is he dropping? Where is he going to go? And why is he dropping? Normally people don't care about the 2nd or the 3rd day of the coverage, but they did this year. And that was why. And so he kept the news coming over and over. It didn't come off well, because the people around him didn't care as much. Whereas, he worked with a lot of years with Chris Berman. I think Berman would have gotten a better reaction out of him because they've worked for 100 years. And Berman would have said, oh, that's kind of, something. Whereas Reese is like, this is not that big of a deal, right? So I think that's what happened. Plus, there wasn't the counter guy to Kiper. Like when McShay used to be on, McShay actually kind of called the Sanders drop. He had Sanders, I believe, as his 3rd quarterback. When McShay was with Kiper, McShay would call out Kiper, and that was good, and that was a good back and forth. There's nobody that does that right now. Like who was the number 2 guy they had there? Was help me out, Yates or
Phil Yates was on there for a while. Matt Miller was there for a while.
Right, but nobody's challenging Mel.
Yeah.
Nobody's challenging Mel, so he's going to go off on a kilter there. And I think ESPN, probably the producers, probably didn't mind that because it got people talking. The problem is you have people like Reese Davis that's just not into that stuff because he probably sick and tired of dealing with it in college football and how people think that College Game Day hates their teams and everything. The last thing he wants is like, oh, we're going to do this whole bit on Shedeur Sanders.
Well, I think what got Reese upset is Kuiper. I think to your point, Elo, I can absolutely buy your perspective on you're out there and you think you have it right. All of a sudden you don't have it right, and you're starting to feel a little fool. And so you're starting to now, how do I defend my position, right? And I doubled down, I tripled down. But then he made some comment about the NFL's been getting it wrong for 50 years and they don't know any better. And I think that's the part where Reese Davis is like, what? Like, yeah, okay, fine. You missed on some guys, but they hit on some guys too. Like, I think that's where he just took it to a level where Reese Davis is like just common sense meter just hit the top floor and was like, this is not happening anymore, right? Too. And I had a buddy of mine. It's interesting. I'm curious what you guys would say to this. A buddy of mine and I were talking about this and talking about Mel Kiper Jr. And he said, quote, if Mel Kiper was so good, why wouldn't a team have hired him by now? Right. He's been doing this for 50 years. If he was such a good talent evaluator, some team would hire him. And I was like, you know what? It's a fair question, I guess, maybe. But I do think, to your point,
how many has he gotten right?
I do think, to your point, Elo, he saw this as a referendum on his credibility and decided, I've got to come out swinging. And
he's going to defend himself. No, right. He's defending himself.
What's the media move these days? Come out swinging and be wrong and be loud wrong and be louder than the next guy. Be loud. And I think that's what you saw.
No, that's what it is. I mean, I've done that.
Facts, yeah.
I've been guilty of doing that. Like, I mean, I remember last year I obsessed over the fact that I thought it was incorrect that the committee had UCF as a last four in softball versus FAU, and I kept going and going. And my bosses finally said, like, can you let it go? So sometimes it consumes you maybe too much. And I think it did with Mel, because people are like, man, you guys whiffed on this guy. And Mel's saying, no, I didn't. As far as why he hasn't been hired, he actually did an interview about that recently. And he said that he was actually prepared to join the Colts organization in 1983. But the Colts moved to Indianapolis and the deal was off. If it wasn't for that, he would not be doing NFL stuff. He would have been in the organization. And then since then, he just felt like he makes good money, a living, doing this draft stuff, which is obviously very popular, versus the stress of being in an organization where, it's a day-to-day job. So I think he doesn't. I think he probably has received early in his career, and he's like, screw it, I don't want to do it. I'll just do the TV stuff.
Okay, so that's why he went so hard at the Colts in the 80s.
That's the famous "Who the hell is Mel Kiper?"
Right. Yeah. But think about that. But that's what people remember from the draft. The thing, when you think of the NFL draft sound bites, it's the Colts thing about him going back and forth with the GM, and he did talk about, and he talked at length about that interview. And then when he ripped the Jets and saying, clearly the Jets have no idea how this draft works. That's what people remember. And I gotta say, and I'll defend him on this, it's a lot better than the junk we get on the NBA draft coverage. Where, I mean, good Lord, every pick is the greatest pick ever. My goodness.
All right. So answer me this, guys. Do you get excited about the NFL schedule release?
Not when it leaks. Not when it's leaking. Like, by the time the show gets the airs, it's already leaked. Like, it's absurd. Like, it's like, what are we doing? Like, and then it's like months away. The part that I do like, and again, goes back to Rich Eisen, he does a good job on his show where he gets the voices of all the networks to talk about the specific network scheduling. So that part interests me about what did Sunday Night Football get? What did Monday Night Football get? And stuff like that. And then hearing, like, Jim Nantz loves that stuff. If you ever hear Jim Nantz, he breaks down the scheduling like it's like second nature to him. It's incredible. So that part I do like, but as far as let's do a 3-hour show and break down how the Cowboys are going to look in October in this slate. No, I'm not into that. Sorry,
not good. I honestly, guys, for me, like, and maybe I'm showing, my age a little bit. I rather enjoy the social media videos that the teams have been making of their schedule, or they do some of the unique things and they bring back old players. They do kind of these skits. Like, I actually watched that more than I watched any of the actual coverage. Like, I went and found the teams that I care about or that I'm interested in, and I saw their little videos they put together. Coles famously put one together where they had a dolphin in handcuffs, aka Tyreek Hill. They had to take that one down. A bunch of teams did Fortnite models, of stuff too. I actually found that stuff more creative. Maybe I'm more of a social media person these days, but I wasn't going to sit there and glue in. And to your point, Elo, I felt like I knew half the schedule by noon on that day, based on all the leaks and all the other things that were trickling out throughout the week.
So you mean you did not take heed at the NFL draft of that tremendous promo that Colleen Wolfe and Laura Rutledge did to promote the schedule release?
It must have just slipped my mind, Jeff, unfortunately, when the time came to make a choice on what.
Well, that's the funny thing, right? We do this big schedule release, and then like a week or two later, we'll forget about it anyway, and we will like, hey, who are we playing week? Like it doesn't matter. Like it's just It's like when the UCF schedule comes out, like I have to remind, like nobody's going to remember exactly like 2 weeks later. Hey, who are we playing in week 5? Like, I mean, you got to look it up. I mean, so whatever.
Yeah, the only game I will generally remember from the UCF schedule release is the one that I'm playing in the road trip for.
Exactly. Yes. and most people are watching the NFL schedule release for one team, their favorite, right? And so the other ones are just like, all right, can we move past this? Can we move past this? You're looking for one team anyway, right? So I'd rather just go find my team schedule, and then if I want to look at some other ones, I'll figure that out too.
Now the funny part was Jim Nantz like begging like Aaron Rodgers to just go ahead and sign with the Steelers because apparently he's probably going to call the Steelers Jets Week 1 game on CBS. Like that's funny stuff. That part I do enjoy.
That is good stuff for sure. And by the way, Adam, Cowboys with 4 Thursday night games or 4 Thursday games this season.
Really?
4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Al Michaels got to be happy about that.
Well, the first one will be on NBC because it's the season opener.
Oh,
that won't be it.
And there's Thanksgiving, which is always on Thursday.
Yep.
But they gave them they did this a few years back too, Jeff, where they gave Cowboys back-to-back Thursdays. So you gave them the Thursday after Thanksgiving just to keep it kind of neutral. And they didn't do it last year. They did it again this year, but then they gave them the Christmas game too, right? So now they've got the 4. That one should be on, well, I guess it'll be an NBC, right? Or is that on Netflix?
Christmas will be Netflix,
right?
Probably, yeah. Unless it's the Amazon Prime game.
So it could be 4 Thursdays on 4 different channels.
Yeah, could be.
That's a little different.
Everybody
the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Is there a holiday the Chiefs are not playing in?
Not anymore.
No.
Not anymore. All right, and moving on, and this almost kind of astonished me, to be honest with you. So Brent Musburger is finally going to get into the broadcast wing of the NFL Hall of Fame. I thought he was in already. You know, I mean, this is a guy that revolutionized NFL pregame shows, made them. I mean, that's the inspiration for everything you see today. Maybe that inspiration's gotten way too far out of hand, but nonetheless, why was he not in the Hall of Fame already for the NFL? I don't know.
Yeah, the only reason I knew he wasn't because Dan Patrick and Jim Nantz have both brought it up, and they've brought it up every time Jim Nantz is on Dan Patrick. So I knew he wasn't. I don't know why it took so long. You know, some of this stuff is weird. Like some guys get in right away, some don't for whatever reason. Did you watch either one of you the CBS documentary they did on their Super Bowl year? I think it was a year ago where they did NFL Today.
NFL. Yep.
Oh,
I read the book that inspired that show. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, great stuff. So I think that helped Brent a little bit because that kind of picked up the conversation again. I think what happened was because Brent worked so long, he was still active that I think people are like, we'll wait till he's done. And then it snuck up on people. So, but yeah, he absolutely deserves to be in there. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, to Eli's point, I had forgotten he wasn't in. I remembered that he wasn't, but forgot about it. And then I saw you sent the topic, Jeff. I was like, what did I miss here? Like I always thought, and then I had to go back and I did some research and figured it out. It's a really interesting question. I wonder, he was one of the first, and I don't know. I maybe this again, conspiracy theory hot take. He was one of the first who was not afraid to bring some element of gambling into the conversation. Now, he did it slyly, right? He didn't do it very overtly, but he was one of the first to really kind of embrace and want to skirt that line between gambling and the NFL.
It was his idea to hire Jimmy the Greek.
Jimmy the Greek, yeah. And I wonder if that had any factor in maybe holding him back for a while. Now that the NFL's firmly in bed with every gambling company they can find and more, I wonder if that made it. But I wonder if there was a period of time where they were just like, I don't know, like maybe we want to stay away from this and yada, yada, yada.
Plus, wasn't he calling the Vegas Raiders for a little bit?
He was calling the Vegas Raiders.
So I wonder if that may have also played a role there.
He was on, and again, I don't know how these things work. Maybe it does or doesn't matter. He was on a gambling network, VSiN, I believe he started Vegas. And I don't know if that was a competition with the NFL's contracts and stuff. My suspicion is that there's something gambling related there. It's funny. I think I read, and Jeff, you may know, so keep me honest, that he used to say you're looking live so that people who were betting on the game knew that this was not a replay. This was the actual game, right? So
and he's given the weather,
yeah,
you know,
and so he subtly always. I wonder if there's just an element of the NFL going, we should just stick away from that a little bit. And now that they're in bed with FanDuel and DraftKings and Hard Rock and MGM and every other gambling company out there, that it finally just made sense to put him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, well overdue, and ironically, so the NFL Today actually existed before Musburger, and it was more of a 15-minute. Well, they used to do a taped show with Pat Summerall and Tom Brookshire, actually. Then Jack Whitaker had hosted the show, and he had to be out, so they asked Brent to fill in, and Brent crushed it. He did like 3 times a better job because he knew how to handle all those transitions. You know, they would do they would kind of do what inspired NFL Red Zone, really. So in some cases at halftime, they'd check in at other games and stuff like that. And so he really did take that pregame show, which was almost an afterthought, and exploded it into the biggest thing there ever was.
Speaking of, you know what I read the other day, guys, that blew my mind away that I just hadn't even thought about? This upcoming football season will mark 20 years since NFL primetime was on the air. I for some reason I feel like that just went off the air like a year ago. I don't know why. It's been 20 years since Berman and TJ were on NFL.
So clearly, you're not counting the ESPN Plus version currently.
Clearly, when Booker McFarland's involved, I'm not involved. But I was just mind blown that it's really been 20 years since NFL primetime was on.
We're getting old, Adam. We're getting old.
We really are.
That is.
By the way, I want to say the higher the year, ESPN getting Peter Schrader.
Yes.
He's really good. You want to talk about a guy that's a perfect fit there? I mean, like he was Mike Greenberg's dream for Get Up. I mean, that guy, I saw him. He was on Get Up. He was on NFL Live today. He was on SportsCenter. Like he is made for that network. I mean, he'll do it all. And props to them. That's props to him. Props to the network. That was, I think it's the higher of the year.
And he doesn't have to shut out to the West Coast anymore.
And that hurt. I think that hurt the Good Morning Football show, NFL Network.
1,000%. Yep. Well, I mean, I would typically watch that show like after Get Up annoyed me, and I didn't want to watch First Take. Good Morning Football was a good show. It was fun. It was irreverent. Him and Kyle Brandt have a really good. I'm curious to see if this NFL Network thing comes to pass and ESPN makes that purchase. If I'm ESPN, I find a way to get Brandt and Traeger on a show somehow. I either maybe that's the around the horn replacement. Like I find a way to get those two together and make a show out of it because
we need the 3 of us to come up with a list of possible shows on that 5 o'clock slot and see who comes closest to getting it right.
Well, the problem is it's going to be the most boring. Right? We're going to have all these fun ideas.
Mike Greenberg show,
NFL Live now, super size. Like that's going to be what they do, or the Mike Greenberg experience.
Greeny in the evening,
and him and Hembo talking to
Greeny in the evening. Oh, that's good. That's got to be on one of the. It's a good one. Green, don't give him ideas.
He's not wrong. Damn it, you're not wrong, Jeff. I want to dispute this, but I have no right to.
Oh, well, every time slot opens up, Greenberg's running to the corner office. I'm here. I can do it.
Yeah.
When do you think we'll know who takes over that slot? I mean, because the last show is Friday for Around the Horn.
May 23rd, May 23rd, final show. I imagine they'll do fill-in stuff for a little bit of time. I got to think they'd wait until like the fall premiere schedule, right? Like I got to think they'll just let it ride through the summer, show highlights and show other nonsense, and they announce or they launch sometime in the fall would be my guess.
Or if it's NFL, they're I'm thinking July when training camps open.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that could
the
be
Traeger Brandt theory though is not a bad one for that slot. That makes sense.
Yeah,
that would probably be very good.
Don't forget too, they got Kevin Clark who does NFL stuff for them too.
He's been on TV a lot lately. I thought he's interesting. Yeah, I all of a sudden I was like, why is Kevin Clark on my TV more than I remember? And nothing wrong with it, but all of a sudden I was like, I have more Kevin Clark than I thought I would see in my life. He's got a giant head, by the way. His head does not fit the rest of his body.
Oh gosh. All right. So, final topic for this particular edition of the show. Going to do a little bit of a college softball recap. Of course, we
All right,
we have
see
a
you guys
college,
later. See y'all.
we do have a college softball expert in our midst, so we'd be remiss not to have some conversation about that. So, I watched a lot of games this weekend, Friday through Sunday. Um, Elo, give me your thoughts. Who are your, of course, you should be doing these games in the regional. You should be, but who are the people that you watch amongst your peers that you really like to hear?
Oh wow! Well, first of all, don't worry, Adam. I got a golf take for you that I want to call you out on the golf PGA, the major stuff. Yeah, but coverage. But softball wise, Kevin Brown, who kind of is a part timer because he's the voice of the Orioles.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good. It actually bothers me that he doesn't do more softball. I understand it. His role with the Orioles have expanded evidently or whatever. So like he'll do a super regional, and then some of the World Series. He doesn't do many regular season games. That's one that will jump out to me. He's going to do Texas Tech, Florida State this week in the Supers with Nyjah Kennedy. So that'll be a good one. That one jumps out by far, without question. The crew that just did the UCF, the Austin Regional, Eric Freed and Madison Shipman, that's a good crew too. I know them both. I think Freed's a pretty good, solid play caller.
Freed's a Dallas guy, isn't he? He's in the Dallas market, isn't he?
That I don't know. I didn't ask him that. I didn't get that personal with him. I'll next time I run around. I'll ask him next time. So I Chucky Kemp, who grew into softball. His aunt was a softball player and a softball. He's a softball guy. He does a great job. He's not calling a super, which bothers me a little bit. That's the only thing that bothers me about ESPN. Like there are softball people out there, and forget me. Like Chucky Kemp and people should be calling super regionals and regionals. You don't have to bring in people from other sports to necessarily pop in to call softball, but that's kind of how they treat it. That's just the way it is. Unlike baseball, like in college baseball, where now Carl Ravage all of a sudden starting to do more college baseball, by the way. So
good.
Realizes. Well, he does call the World Series. And
is Greeny not available for that?
No, Greeny's not available. I don't think he would do play. But those are some of the softball ones that jumps out top of my head from a play-by-play standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, though, it's the same with college football, but Tiffany Green is like nails on a chalkboard to me. I was like, oh my God.
She'll be doing a super regional this weekend for Georgia and Florida. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. I'll say she shouldn't be, but that's my opinion.
That's Jeff Allen, not me. That's Jeff Allen's comment. Yeah. So I mean, that's I think ESPN they're kind of. I'd like them to refresh some things in their coverage, but the problem is softball. One of my concerns is it's starting to take a back seat to, for example, the men's and women's basketball coverage. Like ESPN has gone all in on women's basketball, not just in the collegiate game, but the tournament. But now even the WNBA stuff, like I could not believe I couldn't get away from this whole nonsense of whatever happened with Caitlin Clark and Reese or whatever. Like somebody said something to somebody, and now that's a story, which I don't understand. So, but anyway.
And now Ryan Clark and RG3 are going to fight each other.
Is that right? Okay. Well, there you go.
Further developments.
Well, and so that bothers me a little bit. And as a result, I think it hurts the softball coverage, whereas I think a couple of years ago, ESPN went all in on him. Not that they've not gone all in, but I feel like they've gotten complacent with the softball coverage. Whereas in comparison, they've done a really good. They've expanded the college baseball coverage. I know that's not a good subject to have right now, the way UCF season went. But I do. The only reason I bring that up is I think college baseball. You're going to see more college baseball on ESPN once Sunday Night Baseball goes away next year. That's my prediction on that.
I can see that happening too. But it is they do carry a lot of games. Over the ESPN networks. They didn't get ABC coverage this weekend. I trust they'll get some ABC coverage next weekend.
The World Series, they'll get a couple of games in the World Series. I don't know about the Supers. Depends. Again, got to make sure that UFL airs. We got to prevent. You don't want to miss the Michigan Panther, whatever.
The championship game is this weekend, so it'll be
Michigan Panthers in it. I need to know that, Jeff. I actually have a funny story, and maybe this talks a little bit about how softball has grown. To your point, you're closer to it, so maybe I've got a different perspective. But it was I knew the game was on Saturday, right? And so I knew the time. And I was doing some other stuff in the house, and I was like, "Oh crap, the game's on!" And I instantly went to my TV, picked up the remote, and went to ESPN Plus. found the little logo, clicked on it, and it was like, please go to and I was like, go to my cable provider. And whenever it does that, that means it's on ESPN linear. And I was like, oh, we're on ESPN. And so I assumed it would be on ESPN Plus. I didn't even think it would be on the ESPN main. And it was. I mean, I agree with Jeff. Maybe it's a low bar, and maybe I'm showing my ignorance as a softball fan, but it looked like every game I could have watched if I had wanted to. If I really wanted to watch every game of all the,
Yes.
I had the opportunity to, which I think speaks volumes to maybe some opportunity for growth there. But you know better than us, Hila. I mean, 10 years ago, were you able to do that? 5 years ago, was that an option?
No.
Right? So I think you see that growth, which I do think is cool. But it was interesting. I immediately went to ESPN Plus, assuming that's where the game was, only to learn that it was actually on ESPN Linear, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, like 10, 15 years ago, I'd be on the road calling the game because there was no broadcast. Now there is broadcast everywhere. And you mentioned the linear side of things. I think that's true. Yes, it's my job. It is. You can watch every game. And for my job, that's a good thing because that's what I need to do. But
I do agree with Jeff, though, in that I think, and again, I'm a novice at this, but I think to me, and he just mentioned Tiffany Green, right? It's obvious that ESPN trucks in reporters and folks to cover who don't really cover the sport. And while I understand that professionals are professionals, you can come in and call anything, I do think they're missing out on the Eric Lopez's of the world and the folks who call and know these games way better than trotting somebody in off a set who hasn't looked at college softball in 6 months to have them call a game. I do think there's a bit of a disservice, particularly in this first round, where you've got some localized, you got some pods and some seat. Like, I do think they could enhance their coverage by bringing some more knowledgeable voices, maybe not the known voices, but some more knowledgeable voices to the broadcast. I do think that, because Jeff's right, you can tell some folks that you listen to don't I don't want to say don't care about softball, but you can tell this isn't what they're doing, right? They're here to call the game. They're going to get on the bus afterwards and not going to think about it a second time.
Part of the gig. It's part of the contract deal that they were it's a throw-in deal. And the thing that's changed, 10 years ago, they would get away with that. It's fine. Everybody was just glad that the game was being broadcasted. Now they're getting it's a little bit like baseball, and you've heard Joe Buck talk about this, where the national baseball guys get a lot of grief because they're not the local guy, right? Because you're used to watching the local broadcast. So when they go national for the postseason, people start like, what the heck? We're starting to see a little bit of that in the softball end, in that people are now that follow softball are accustomed to for getting a bunch of games, whether it's UCF games you're used to our broadcast, or if you're watching Alabama, you're used to the Alabama broadcast. So by the time now you get to the postseason and you're watching this crew, you're like, what's going on? Like, I got a lot of text messages because people were mad because they felt that the broadcast was very tilted to Michigan on Friday, or Texas. And they were showing a lot of them, and they're like, they don't talk about this UCF player like you do and stuff like that. So I think that is becoming a backlash like we see in Major League Baseball with the local rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. And I watch enough softball during the season, not nearly as much as you, Elo, but I watch enough during the season, and there are some good crews out there at some of the other Big 12 schools. There are some that are not.
No doubt. No, there is. It's gotten better and better every year. There's more depth. And conferences like the SEC, got to give them credit. They invest in it, like the production wise. The Big 12 is starting to catch up on that, and other schools are as well. And I'm very fortunate that I work at a school that has, invested in it over the last couple of years with my bosses and Major Howell and people like that. So that is a game changer from that regard. And I think people now can tell more obvious when people just shoehorn in, oh, this person doesn't follow the sport. They only care about a couple of extra teams. So there is some backlash going on within the fan bases and the sport with that. And whether ESPN cares about that, whether they will adjust to that, I don't know. You can tell.
We'll keep our fingers crossed that they do. So before we go, a little tease for an upcoming show, because, it just was recently announced that Lee Corso is going to retire from College Game Day, and he will do his last broadcast on the opening week of the NFL, the NCAA season, and that'll be a tearjerker for sure. But just wanted to get some initial thoughts from you guys on Lee Corso finally hanging out. I'm glad he's going to get a ceremony, if you will.
Well, you said big announcement. I thought you were going to reveal that we're going to broadcast live from the Big Three at UCF Arena. And so I thought that's what you're doing, Jeff. Wasn't ready for that yet.
Oh, well, that's coming.
Okay, good. All right, good. The live remote from the Big Three on a week 2, or whatever the hell that would be. I agree. I like that he gets one final swan song. I'm really curious. I think it's going to be a tearjerker. I think Kirk Herbstreit's going to be inconsolable. Because I do think obviously that's a close relationship, and I'm curious to see how they continue to honor him throughout the show. Like, I think headgear is done, right? Like, I think we've all said in the past, you can't bring that on with Corso. So curious if they try to keep him woven in any way, either segment, a not so fast segment or something. Like, curious to see if they try to find a way to weave him in. But I think we've all seen what's happened on camera. I think a lot of folks have been concerned about it. Obviously he's missed a bunch of time. The travel on that show has got to be tough. Like, it's got to be tough every week, flying to a new place and everything they have to do with media perspective. And so tip of the cap for him doing it that long and doing it at such a high level. Obviously it's unfortunate to see what his health has done to him lately, but I'm glad he gets to go out on his terms the way he wants. He gets one final show, gets to be with his guys again. And I'm curious to see how that show continues to honor him once he's gone. If it's a segment, if it's something like that. I feel like there still needs to be some sort of a touch point to Lee Corso on game day going forward.
I'm intrigued to see where do they do the show from, because to me there's 2 spots they could do it from. Do they do it from Tallahassee for the Alabama FSU game because that's where he went to school, or do they do it from Texas in Ohio State, even though it's a Fox game? But if you follow the show closely, that is the place where he first made his first headgear pick when he picked up the Brutus the Buckeye. To me, that's what's interesting, is which location do they decide should be his last game day show. Interesting.
I would vote for FSU myself.
I agree.
So UCF Jacksonville State out of the picture here. We get
He's the Sunshine Schooner. I think you get him at Tallahassee. Short trip, easy. Easy for him to kind of get to. I feel like that's probably the better play if I'm ESPN.
Yeah. Well, we will talk about that more when we get closer to that. What is a landmark event?
I have a quick. Elo said he had a golf hot take from me. I don't want to miss on a golf hot take.
Yes, that's why. That's the only reason I had to keep you on during the softball segment.
Perfect.
And I understand why they did this, because of the playoff schedule, and they wanted to avoid the NFL and all that. I hate that the fact that the PGA is now in this early. I just got over the Masters. Like, I need a break, Adam. I know I'm not the diehard like you are, so you guys probably don't care, but like, it just felt weird. And then I'm watching it. Van Pelt clearly seems like a bigger role on the ESPN coverage, but they also had an alternate version on the Deuce. I don't know if you caught that at all. Just your overall thoughts on this, because the PGA was around, but I was like, wait, the PGA is now? Like, I'm not ready for this. I'm the guy that's used to Masters. Give me a window break and then get ready for the U.S. Open. This PGA seems like it's forced in there.
I will agree. It sneaks up on you.
It does. Same with me. I was like, wait, that is this weekend, right? Like, I had to recalibrate my own mind on that. Yeah, I think the calendar has screwed them up, but I do think you said it right. They stay away from football as much as they can, right? I think they like every other sport, they run from the hills and they want to get away as far away from football as they can. But there's a lot of conversation in the inner golf community that the PGA is the 4th of the 4 majors, right? It's the one that's probably it's the Australian Open, if you will, of the golf circuit. It's the one that you kind of sneaks up on you. It's not our U.S. Open.
Yeah.
It's not the Open, which is really the British Open, but it is what it is. It's definitely not the Masters. So it's the one that sneaks up on you a little bit. But I don't disagree. I actually thought, I don't know if you guys watched it, I thought CBS did a couple of really nice tweaks with their broadcast, their coverage this year. Are you guys familiar with the worm cam? Anybody know what a worm cam is?
I've heard about this.
They put a camera basically on the level of the green, and so you watch the ball kind of roll in, which is it's such a unique shot because you can see the breaks, you can see where the ball's going. You don't get it on every hole. I think it's great. And they did another great thing where they had the live shot of the golfer hitting from the tee in kind of a small box. And they had the shot tracker, but instead of the shot tracker coming from behind the golfer, they basically had like a drone shot with the entire hole, and the line showed you where the ball landed on the course, right? So
That's
where it was
cool.
in the fairway.
Yeah.
And so as opposed to like trying to figure out like, is it in the trees? Is it not because it's behind you? I thought the overhead shot with the track tracer, while you're still seeing the guy hit in the small window, I thought it was great. Like, it was great to see where people were hitting it, where you could tell early on Scheffler was pulling left a ton.
Yes.
but it was only because of that shot. And I thought that was I feel like I don't see that enough on broadcasts. I thought that was a nice twist.
I agree. And this is what a good follow-up here, because I wanted to ask you about this. Do you still believe CBS is the best in golf coverage?
Yes, hands down.
Jeff, do you agree with that?
I would agree. I think I don't think it's a wide gap.
The only reason I do is NBC doesn't even know who is in their tower, right? Is it Kisner this week? Is it, are they bringing another guy? Dan Hicks is solid, but they don't know who's in their tower. They don't know who's there. I think, the names that about, Frank Nobilo and Dottie Pepper, they're all on the CBS side. Right? I think NBC does okay, but I think to me, CBS is the much better golf outfit.
NBC runs way too many commercials.
Yes. Yeah,
they do a lot. Well, now I was going to bring up my next question is, who is the premier golf analyst right now? Remember Johnny Miller was like the face of it, it seemed like, on NBC, and I thought about this because I saw Curtis Strange pop up on the ESPN coverage of the PGA, which was like, whoa, hey, Curtis Strange. Because I always liked Curtis Strange back in the day when the ABC had the majors, with Mike Tirico and stuff. And I was thinking to myself, who is the main analyst now that you go to as far as television coverage? That it used to be a Johnny Miller or, even
there's not a hot known guy.
Right. Am I right on that?
Nick Faldo, right?
Are we missing? Yeah.
No. Yeah. Trevor Immelman obviously is the CBS chair, right? So he's kind of the bigger name. Guys, I would tell you, I think what's interesting about the golf community is more of the YouTube presence has come into it. I think more people are turning to some of the content creators on YouTube. The no laying ups, the fried eggs, even the Barstool Sports guys do a pretty good job on their golf podcast. I think you're seeing people lean in more to those guys and less of the Trevor Immelmans of the world. Andy North, they still trot him out of ESPN, 2-time major winner, Andy North, like in 1960. Don't get me wrong. I think you need to figure out that chair, right? I think NBC needs badly to figure that chair out. I think they need Phil to stop taking live money and go into a booth someplace, because I think that would be the guy.
He's the right. Everybody's waiting for him to just like that makes the most sense, right?
Yeah, he's absolutely the guy. And I mean, Tiger, I don't think Tiger could be that guy. So don't do a Jordan Tiger and try to come in and do golf coverage. But I think Mickelson could absolutely be that guy. He's not afraid to mix it up. He's not afraid to be a bit of an a-hole at times. He's obviously got a checkered reputation in some circles of the golf community. I think he would be instantaneous must-see TV the second he walks into whatever broadcast tower he wants to walk into.
So, Adam, I think the guy I would like to see get booted is Ian Baker Finch. He says absolutely nothing.
Yeah, no complaint here. I like Colton Oast, who does a lot of the ESPN Plus coverage, also does some CBS. Funny guy, like irreverent. I think he does a nice job. Smiley Kaufman is really good as well, but again, he's not an analyst per se. So I think the personalities are more around the fringes of golf and golf coverage versus actually being in the tower these days. I think it's some of the YouTube creators. I think it's some of the other guys. Smiley Kaufman has his own podcast too, but he also does work with NBC. I think it's the folks on the fringes that are doing a better job at covering golf than probably some of the networks are on course. The voice of golf really is Jim Nantz right now. Is that a hot take?
I don't think that is a hot take. I think the bigger question is who's second behind him.
I would vote Van Pelt, but he doesn't call majors. Like he helps out with on the Thursday, Friday coverage on the Masters. He's a little bit involved in the British or the Open Championship, as we have to call it now. But I would say it's Van Pelt. Like I think Van Pelt's been consistently since he got to ESPN, former Golf Channel guy. He's been consistent about his love for golf. I think he said recently he wants to call a major at some point in time. I think the contract is up for one of the majors is coming up soon, but the contract is up. Maybe it's the Open, U.S. Open. And I think he wants a shot at that. I'd say Van Pelt second.
Yeah. It's interesting, because ESPN, they get like 2-3 opportunities a year in the golf space. So,
well, now they got the TGL, Jeff. Everybody watch out. They got the Indoor Golf League.
What about Matt Berry? What's your thoughts on him? He did that. He did a lot of that stuff.
He did that. He was on the ESPN coverage of the PGA too.
Yeah,
he's okay. Yeah, he's okay. Like he's a good studio, like on the 16th green of the desk guy. Like I don't need him in my towers, but he's a good studio guy. Like I don't have any issues with, but he's got to earn his chops a little bit. Like I still think he's got to put his time in.
Second best golf announcer, I'm going to do a hot take, Andrew Catalon.
I know you love Catalan. You keep pushing him to take over for Nance.
Catalan's not bad. I mean, Dan Hicks isn't terrible when he's on there. I mean, he's not.
Isn't the NBC thing awkward because it's Tirico and Hicks in the same room, and
Yes.
it always feels awkward, like they don't know who's to lead, and it's just very.
And they don't
NBC's
know.
gotten awkward.
There was a shot. I think it was the Players Tournament, and I can look it up. But NBC had Tirico and Dan Hicks, and then they had Kevin Kisner and I think Nota Begay, and it was almost like A team, B team, all in the same studio at the same time, like having conversations. And I was like, "What are we? Is this like Anchorman where they're like fighting it out to see who gets to stay in the tower? Like, what are we doing here?" So NBC's got to get that figured out. They have not found their good replacement for that. Kisner's not bad, but he's also part time, so he's on some tournaments, he's not on others. I just think CBS does a better job graphically. And I think their camera angles and the way that they cover the game, just from a pure production standpoint, I think is way better than NBC.
Yeah, I think they definitely invest more in that. And of course, what in the hell happened to David Faraday, right?
He
fell off a cliff, didn't he? Yeah.
He went to live.
He's with every other live golfer, right? And who just they outside of Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, I think you got to say this live golf experiment, well, certainly made folks a lot of money. I don't know that it's produced a ton of results. I think Koepka initially was really doing well, but that entire, I think they're on Fox now, or they're on Fox 2 or FS2 at some point in time, right? But at some point, they've got to figure that out. Are those guys welcome back? That's the question. Would they ever have Faraday back? Because I think he could have been a name, Jeff. He could have been somebody. He could have been Charles Barkley of golf if he had stayed on the PGA Tour side.
But some people have made a counter argument, and I don't know if you agree with this, Adam, that because they've been on the live, and then you have the guys on the PGA, that has created more intrigue in the majors and has boosted the numbers, because that's the only time you get to see all these guys play it together.
Yeah, I don't discount that. Like, I was joking with you guys before we started that for a while there, you had Scotty Scheffler and John Rahm, right? PGA Tour versus a live guy. And you thought, okay, this could be a duel, a showdown. And then Rahm falls off a cliff, and not literally, although maybe he should have. And all of a sudden, that thing is over, right? And so, yeah, there's some intrigue to it. But I think at some point, a hammer and a nail don't have a rivalry. So at some point, you're going to need one of the live guys to continue to break through. And it seems to be Bryson is the only one really carrying that of late. And sure, the Mickelsons and the Patrick Reeds and, the Cam Smiths hang around at times, but come Sundays, it seems like those guys are falling off the leaderboards faster than you can think about it. So
even if they make the cut,
some don't even make the cut anymore. Some are they're just, I mean, they're up and coming golfers are so they're so irrelevant now. You don't even think about some of them anymore. And it's a damn shame. Cam Smith is the name that comes to mind a lot. Won an Open Championship, won the Players, went right to live, and I don't think you've heard from him since on a broadcast. And some of that is the broadcast partners who are probably going to do that thing where they don't always show the coverage of the guy, but it's interesting how quickly some of those folks have kind of moved off of that national relevancy.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this edition of Golf Talk.
I feel it was only fair. I got my softball segment. He gets his golf segment. I think that's a fair negotiation.
I like where you're at, Elo. Maybe we should do our own podcast. It's half golf, half softball, and we just, that's what we do.
Yeah, I heard there's inventory available on the
inventory available on the Suns media conglomerate over here.
All right, guys, blatant plugs before you leave. Elo.
All right, Eric Lopez Elo on your favorite social media places. They have not locked me out like Trace Trelko, so that's good. That's obviously got to check out some of the softball coverage for D1 Softball and In the Circle podcast. We're in the super regional round all the way to the World Series. And then some. I got still do UCF stuff on the Banneret from time to time. I got a column coming out about UCF softball and the success and the future of it, and maybe what the school administration should do. That's the tease on the column there. And then we'll probably have Around the Kingdom there when Trace, actually, decides not to go to Cubs games down in South Florida or something. The guy, Mr. PTO over there. So Around the Kingdom there will be popping in, and just keep it over there.
Elo, has anybody ever tried, not that I want this to happen, but has anybody made a run at Coach Cindy Ball Malone from another school?
Spread that out. I do mention that in the column that, they might want to take care of that. They have in the past, and so far there's not a job that worries me that could happen this year, but it's still early in the carousel.
Well, I think with a lot of the bigger schools, those coaches aren't leaving. So I think that's a good
thing.
Now
listen, and UCF's move to the Big 12 probably secures that. Helps too. Like the fact that you realize you're in a power conference, and I mean, if they win a couple of different games in the regular season, they would have been in the mix to host. So she's in a good spot, and now she's got the kids here in Orlando, which is not a bad place to raise kids.
Yeah. All right, Adam, plugs.
Well, this is awkward because I was just about to announce the Sydney Wall Malone show on the Sons of UCF network, but
Who's the host? Who's hosting?
Sydney Wall Malone. She's coming. She's leaving the UCF. No, Sons of UCF. Wherever you do social media stuff, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Now shared by myself and Trace Trucco. So 2 for the price of 1 on Sons Twitter. If you're so interested, check out our YouTube channel at Sons of UCF. Anywhere you get audio shows, you can hear such things as Around the Kingdom with one Eric Lopez, To Your Point with one Jeff Allen, and everything else in the universe there on our podcast feed and our website, sonsofUCF.com. Every 6-8 weeks, we post an article. So sit tight because I think we're due for one soon. So check us out wherever you do those things, and much appreciated.
Outstanding. Another media spotlight in the books, guys. Thanks again.
Adios.
Anytime, boys.